So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this English tour of the Bernadotte Library, or the King's Library, as it's sometimes called. My name is Arvid Jakobsson, and I'm the Palace Librarian, and I'm also keeper of the Bernadotte Family Archive. And this is the book hall of the Bernadotte Library. And the most lovely thing I've heard about this room is on a guided tour a few years back. And a little girl from England who was about 8 years old came in through the door and looked about and said, "You know, this is almost as nice as in Harry Potter." And I agreed, obviously, because it is. Today, this is the dynastic Bernadotte Library, which means that the common denominator of every book you see in here is that it has been owned by a Bernadotte king or queen. And today they are actually ordered according to who owned them, which is not unique but unusual. So we start off with the first Bernadotte king down in the corner, Charles John, Karl Johan. Then we have Oscar I, Charles V, Oscar II almost the whole way down, Gustav V, Gustav VI. And the queens are on the balcony, same order. Start off with Desiree, Josefina, etc., end up with Queen Louise up there, and then we have the sorted princes and princesses. This room was built, this wing rather of the palace was built to host the National Library of Sweden. The old palace burned down in 1697 and almost the entire National Library was lost. In 1768, the National Library could move back, not into this room, but into the 3 corridors behind that wall. They're not as fancy looking as this room, but very practical. And they are as long as this room, 36 meters. This room was used for the carpenters who worked on the rest of the palace. 1796, 99 years after the fire, the National Library moved in here. And the head of the National Library, he was a very enthusiastic librarian, but he made the usual mistake. he said, yeah, we've got room now to grow for 200 years. It lasted for 9 years, and then it was full. So the National Library in 1805 looked something like this. The National Library had, they stayed on here until 1877, when they moved out to their present location in Humlegården. And after that, when they left, it was empty here for a few years, and then they moved in the Royal Armoury. And then it did look very much like Harry Potter, because then there were, armors down here, banners hanging down from the balcony, and muskets and swords and stuff all over the place. And that lasted up until 1906, when they moved out, and it was empty again. And then it turned out that Oscar II, who had been king since 1872, he was old, and he didn't. Everyone knew he didn't have long time to live left. So they moved his books down here, and he was an ardent book collector. He had about 30,000 or 40,000 volumes in his library. They were moved down here and put together with his son's Gustav V's library, making the foundation of the dynastic library. So when we're feeling morbid, we say that the day that Oscar II died is the birthday of this library. The story of the Bernadotte Library begins. It was, up until the 50s, it was used as a research library, so you could come here and sit and do your research. But in 1952, King Gustav VI, the present king's predecessor and grandfather, said that, hey, this is not a research library anymore, this is a library museum. Yeah, of the intellectual pursuits of the Bernadotte family. And if it is that, we have to, the books shouldn't be ordered just after a subject, which they were. No, they took no notice of who owned them. Subject from archaeology, onwards. And in 1952, the king said that this is a museum, we have to reshelf everything. So some lucky guys from the National Library was called here and actually removed all the books. They took down every book and moved them into heaps. One Carl Johan heap, one Oscar I heap, etc., and then moved them, put them back up. Took a few weeks apparently. So that's how they still stand, in chronological order, if you want. And the reason for that is that we are still, or a consequence of that is that we are still a research library, but on the Bernadotte family history. So everything we do have a sort of biographical angle to it. I talked to the group before you about, I got a question about our rare books. And if you say rare book, you often mean something that is very old or very expensive. And yeah, we got old and expensive books as well, but a rare book for us can also be a book that, it wouldn't cost a dime, but it has a personal angle to it. Someone has made, the king has made very many annotations in it, for instance. It had a very personal connection to one of the kings and queens. That can be a rare book for us as well. The most ardent, perhaps, reader was, as I said, Oscar II. He has owned 1/4 of everything, and we're up into 100,000 volumes all in all that we take care of. About 40% of them are in here, and then we have as much behind that wall, and we have books on 5 other palaces and other rooms in this palace as well. And we have 500,000 photographs from 1840 up until today. But Oscar II, we're very grateful to him, not only because he collected a lot of books himself, but also because he preserved a lot of books from the older generations, all the way back to Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte, the first Bernadotte king. He also made, Oscar II, he made annotations in his books, for which we are, of course, eternally grateful. And that can be, just an L for a last, which means red. He also is honest enough to actually write when he hasn't part of it. He has one book, forget the English title, but he has a book by Friedrich Nietzsche, which has written, "This is a very strange book indeed." And the most funniest example is Bellamy by Louis de Maupassant, in which he has written, "Not to be read by ladies." But one of the most famous items in our collections is a play by August Strindberg. He has written a play called Eric XIV. And Strindberg was a Republican author. We have actually a bust of it in the next room because he worked here. The National Library was situated here. And the king received this bust of Strindberg. I thought that would be in the library. And I thought it was a great idea, to have Sweden's most angry Republican in the middle of the Royal Palace. Great idea. So it's still over there. That's the room where he worked, the next room. So he worked here from 1874 to 1883. Anyway, he wrote a play at the end of the 1890s called Eric XIV, which the king reviewed. He's written a review on the title page. And Strindberg and also the second, they disliked each other intensely, sort of hate relationship. And Oscar II has written in Eric XIV that this is absolute rubbish. We can't put this on the stage because it would mean a natural disgrace. And but he does state that Strindberg is a genius, but so is the devil. A far greater one than Strindberg. So there was no love lost between those two gentlemen. He has also made exclamation marks on all the naughty words in the entire play, of which there are a few, I can tell you. But that, at least, he read it. And he read everything Strindberg wrote. Oscar II has more than 30 volumes of Strindberg's production, which is, I think, interesting. He hasn't made annotations in any more of them, but he has written about Strindberg in letters and stuff like that. So even though he hated his authorship, he read the books. Didn't like them, but he read them. And he did the same with, for instance, the Norwegian author Bjørnson, who was sort of